Captain Lee Daeho stared at the massive asteroid floating in front of his ship. The rock was bigger than most moons, dark and cold in the empty space between star systems. His mining vessel Perseverance had been searching for rare metals for 3 weeks now. The pay was good, but the work was boring. "Captain, we're getting strange readings from that asteroid," said his communications officer Kim Tae-woo. The young man frowned at his screen. "There's something metallic deep inside, really deep." Lee Daeho walked over to look at the scanner. Most asteroids had some metal, but this was different. The readings showed patterns that looked almost like buildings. That was impossible. Nothing lived out here in the empty void between systems. "Take us closer," he ordered. "But be careful." The ship moved slowly toward the asteroid. As they got nearer, the sensors showed more details. There were definitely structures inside the rock. Ancient structures. Dr. Park Soo-jin, the ship's scientist, joined them on the bridge. She was excited. "Captain, this could be the discovery of a lifetime. These readings suggest technology that's older than anything we've ever found." Lee Daeho nodded. In his 40 years of space travel, he had seen many things, but nothing like this. The human colonies had been part of the Galactic Coalition for 300 years now. In all that time, they had found ruins from many alien races. But these readings were different. "Start the mining operation," he decided. "But we go slow. If there's something valuable in there, we don't want to damage it." The mining took 6 hours. They had to drill through solid rock to reach the structures below. When they finally broke through, the team found a chamber filled with strange crystalline towers. Each tower was taller than a person and glowed with a soft blue light. "Amazing," whispered Dr. Park Soo-jin as she entered the chamber wearing her protective suit. "These crystals are storing massive amounts of data. I've never seen anything like this technology." The crystals hummed with energy. They seemed to respond to her presence, glowing brighter as she approached. She carefully took readings with her equipment. "Captain," she called over the radio. "You need to see this. These aren't just storage devices, they're like libraries, genetic libraries." Lee Daeho joined her in the chamber. The walls were covered with symbols that seemed to shift and change as he looked at them. The air felt thick with ancient secrets. "What kind of genetics?" he asked. Dr. Park Soo-jin worked at her portable computer trying to decode the crystal data. "It's going to take time to understand all of this. But Captain, some of these genetic patterns look familiar. Very familiar." She showed him her screen. Even though he wasn't a scientist, Lee Daeho could see what she meant. The patterns looked like human DNA. "That's impossible," he said. "Humans evolved on Earth, everyone knows that." "Maybe not," she replied quietly. "Maybe what everyone knows is wrong." They spent the next day downloading data from the crystals. The more they found, the more disturbing it became. The genetic records were detailed beyond anything they had ever seen. They showed not just what humans were, but what they were designed to be. "Captain," Dr. Park Soo-jin said during their evening meeting, "I've decoded enough to understand the basic message. According to these records, humans didn't evolve naturally. We were created by an ancient race called the Architects." The room fell silent. The idea was too big to accept easily. "Created for what purpose?" asked Kim Tae-woo. Dr. Park Soo-jin looked uncomfortable. "War. We were designed to be the perfect warriors." Lee Daeho laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Perfect warriors? Have you seen how the Coalition treats us? We're miners and farmers. The other alien species handle all the military work because they say humans are too weak and peaceful." "That's what I thought too," she said. "But these records tell a different story. According to the Architects, humans have dormant abilities, genetic triggers that activate under extreme stress. Enhanced reflexes, rapid adaptation, pack hunting instincts, and something they call survival imperative, an inability to truly surrender." The ship's intercom crackled to life. "Captain, we have a Coalition military vessel approaching. They're requesting permission to board." Lee Daeho exchanged looks with his crew. Coalition ships didn't usually visit mining operations. "Let them aboard, but don't mention what we found yet. Commander Kim Tae-woo of Coalition Intelligence entered their ship an hour later. He was human, but wore the blue uniform of the Coalition military. Lee Dae-ho had met him before during routine inspections. "Captain Lee," the commander said, "we detected unusual energy readings from your location. Is everything normal?" "Just mining operations," Lee Dae-ho replied carefully. "We found some interesting mineral deposits." Commander Kim Tae-woo looked around the ship's bridge. His eyes were sharp and observant. "May I see your mining logs?" Dr. Park Soo-jin stepped forward. "Commander, before we show you anything, there's something you should know. We've made a discovery that could change everything." The commander's expression didn't change, but Lee Dae-ho noticed his hand move closer to his weapon. "What kind of discovery?" "Evidence that humans weren't meant to be miners and farmers," she said. "Evidence that we're something much more dangerous." For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Commander Kim Tae-woo smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. "Dr. Park, how much have you decoded from those crystals?" Everyone stared at him. He knew about the crystals. "You've been watching us," Lee Dae-ho realized. "Not watching. Waiting," the commander corrected. "Some of us have suspected the truth for years, the way other species treat humans, keeping us away from military positions, limiting our access to certain technologies. It never made sense if we were really as weak as they claimed." He walked to the window and looked out at the asteroid. "Admiral Choi Yeon-soo has been investigating this for decades. She believes the Coalition has been deliberately suppressing human potential." "Why would they do that?" asked Kim Tae-woo. "Because they're afraid of what we might become if we knew the truth," Commander Kim Tae-woo replied. "And after seeing these records, I think they were right to be afraid." Dr. Park Soo-jin pulled up the genetic data on her screen. The records show that humans were designed with multiple layers of ability. Most are dormant, activated only by extreme stress or combat situations. The architects called it progressive enhancement. The more danger we face, the more capable we become. "But why create us at all?" Lee Dae-ho asked. "According to the records, the galaxy goes through cycles," she explained. "Civilizations rise, become comfortable and weak, then fall to new threats. The architects created humans as a reset mechanism, a species that emerges when the galaxy needs warriors again." Commander Kim Tae-woo nodded grimly. "And if these records are accurate, that time might be coming soon. The Coalition has grown fat and lazy. Most member species haven't fought a real war in centuries. What do we do now?" asked Lee Dae-ho. "Now we wake up," the commander replied. "It's time for humanity to discover what we really are." As he spoke, the asteroid's crystals pulsed brighter, as if responding to their words. The ancient technology seemed to approve of their decision. The age of human awakening was about to begin. The news spread faster than anyone expected. Within 2 weeks, every human colony in the galaxy had heard about the discovery. The ancient records from the asteroid were being studied by scientists on dozens of worlds. The reaction from the Coalition government was swift and harsh. Admiral Velthar of the Velnari Dominion stood before the Coalition Council, his reptilian scales dark with anger. "The humans have become a threat to galactic peace," he declared. "These claims about their so-called warrior heritage are clearly false, but they are using them to justify violence." The other alien species nodded in agreement. The insectoid Hithran delegates clicked their mandibles nervously. Even the peaceful Cortani, beings made of living crystal, seemed worried. "We propose immediate protective supervision of all human colonies," Admiral Velthar continued, "for their own safety and the safety of others." On the colony world of New Busan, Lieutenant Colonel Han Ji-woo received the Coalition's demands with growing anger. The message was clear: submit to military occupation or face the consequences. "They want to put armed guards on every human world," he told his officers. "They're treating us like dangerous animals." "Maybe we should consider it," suggested Major Lim Jae-sung. "If we resist, they'll use it as proof that we're becoming violent." Han Ji-woo shook his head. "Don't you see? That's exactly what they want. They've been controlling us for centuries by making us believe we're weak. Now that we know the truth, they're desperate to keep us down." The decision was made for them 3 days later. Velnari warships arrived in orbit around New Busan. Admiral, Felthar's voice echoed across every communication channel. Humans of New Busan, you will surrender all weapons and submit to coalition authority. You have 6 hours to comply. Han Ji-woo gathered the colony's defenders. They had only mining equipment and a few old security weapons. Against the Velnari's advanced military technology, they seemed helpless. We can't win, said Captain Yoon Hye-jin, commander of the colony's small security force. She was a farmer, by trade not a soldier. Maybe we can't win, Han Ji-woo replied. But we don't have to lose quietly. The attack began at dawn. Velnari dropships descended from orbit, carrying assault troops in powered armor. Their weapons could punch through concrete walls. Their shields could stop any human weapon. The first battle lasted only minutes. The human defenders were scattered and overwhelmed. Han Ji-woo watched his people retreat through the colony's streets, pursued by alien soldiers who moved like machines. Then something unexpected happened. Yoon Hye-jin had been running from a Velnari squad when she turned into a dead-end alley. The aliens cornered her, their weapons raised. She was just a farmer with an old mining laser, facing 3 professional soldiers in advanced armor. Later, the survivors would struggle to explain what they saw. Yoon Hye-jin moved like lightning, faster than any human should be able to move. She dodged their energy blasts and somehow got behind them. Using nothing but her mining tool and pieces of broken concrete, she disabled all 3 soldiers in seconds. She stood over their unconscious bodies, breathing hard and confused. "How did I do that?" she whispered. Across the colony, similar scenes were playing out. Kang Min-ho, a teenage mechanic, found himself surrounded by Velnari soldiers near the power plant. He had no military training and no real weapons, but somehow he knew exactly how their equipment worked. In minutes, he had built an improvised explosive device from spare parts that knocked out their entire squad. Han Ji-woo watched the battle turn. His people were changing before his eyes. The peaceful colonists were becoming something else. They moved with deadly purpose, fought with tactical awareness they had never been taught, and showed no fear even when outnumbered. Dr. Song Bo-ram, the colony's medical officer, worked frantically to understand what was happening. She took blood samples from the fighters and ran genetic tests. "It's incredible," she told Han Ji-woo as the battle raged outside. "Their DNA is literally changing. Dormant genes are activating. Enhanced reflexes, improved pattern recognition, accelerated healing. It's like watching evolution happen in real time. The stress of combat is triggering the changes," Han Ji-woo realized. Just like the ancient records said, Captain Lim Jae-sung burst into the medical center. "Colonel, we need you at the front lines. The Velnari are retreating." Han Ji-woo could hardly believe it. "Retreating? How?" "See for yourself." Outside, the scene was like something from a nightmare. The advanced Velnari forces were pulling back to their dropships. Their commanders shouted orders that didn't make sense. How could primitive humans with simple weapons drive back the coalition's finest troops? Yoon Hye-jin appeared beside them, her farming clothes torn and dirty. But her eyes were different now, sharper, more focused. "They fight like machines," she said, watching the retreating aliens. "Everything they do follows patterns. Once you see the patterns, they're easy to predict." "How do you know that?" asked Lim Jae-sung. She looked at her hands as if seeing them for the first time. "I don't know, but I can see how they move, how they think. It's like someone turned on lights in my brain." The Velnari withdrawal was broadcast across the galaxy. Admiral Velthar's explanation to the Coalition Council was full of military terms that couldn't hide the simple truth. They had been beaten by farmers and miners. "The humans displayed tactical capabilities far beyond their known parameters," he reported. "They adapted to our strategies faster than our computers could calculate new ones." Other human colonies watched the news with growing excitement. On Earth, Admiral Choi Yeon-soo smiled as she read the reports. She had been waiting for this day for decades. "Contact all human military commanders," she ordered her staff. "It's time to stop pretending we're weak." On the mining ship Perseverance, Captain Lee Dae-ho continued studying the ancient records with Dr. Park Soo-jin. What they found made them both uncomfortable. The architects didn't just design humans for war, Dr. Park Soo-jin explained. They designed them to enjoy it. Look at these genetic markers. Enhanced aggression, reduced empathy during combat, addiction to victory. We're not just becoming better fighters, we're becoming different people. Lee Dae-ho watched the news reports from New Busan. The colonists who had fought the Velnari looked happy. Too happy for people who had just been in a life-or-death battle. Maybe that's what it takes, he said quietly. Maybe you can't be a perfect warrior and remain perfectly human. The records mention other races the architects created. Dr. Park Soo-jin continued. All of them became so obsessed with fighting that they destroyed themselves. What if that's our fate too? Before Lee Dae-ho could answer, their communications officer called out, "Captain, we're receiving a message from Admiral Choi Yun-soo. She wants to speak with you personally." The Admiral's face appeared on their screen. She was older than Lee Dae-ho had expected, with gray hair and tired eyes. But there was steel in her voice. "Captain Lee, your discovery has changed everything. The Coalition is mobilizing their full military against human worlds. They're calling it a peacekeeping operation, but we know better." "What do you want us to do?" Lee Dae-ho asked. "Help us wake up our people," she replied. "The genetic triggers are spreading, but slowly. We need to accelerate the process. Every human who awakens makes us stronger." Dr. Park Soo-jin leaned forward. "Admiral, the records suggest that this awakening might be irreversible. Once the changes begin, there's no going back to what we were." Admiral Choi Yun-soo was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke words that would echo through history. "Maybe it's time to stop being what we were and become what we were meant to be." The transmission ended, leaving them alone with their thoughts and the glowing crystals that had started it all. The galaxy split apart like a broken mirror. The news from New Busan had changed everything. Some species supported the humans, while others demanded they be stopped before they became too dangerous. General Seo Kyung-min stood on the bridge of the captured coalition destroyer Harmony. 3 months ago it had been a Velnari warship. Now it flew human colors and carried human crew. The transformation had been surprisingly easy once the humans aboard stopped pretending to be weak. "General, we have reports from the Hithran Empire," said his communications officer, Lieutenant Bae Young-sik. "They're officially joining our cause. Their queen says the Velnari have oppressed them for too long." Seo Kyung-min nodded. The insectoid Hithran had always been treated as second-class citizens by the reptilian Velnari. It made sense they would support anyone fighting their oppressors. "What about the Cortani?" he asked, still deciding. "But their crystal ambassadors are asking for copies of our genetic records. They want to understand what we've become." That was the question everyone was asking. What had humans become? Engineer Onari had been working on that problem for weeks. She stood in the shipyard above Mars, watching human workers build vessels, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The new ships were fast and deadly, designed for attack rather than defense. "The Coalition builds ships to protect things," she explained to Admiral Choi Yun-soo during their inspection tour. "They have thick armor and defensive shields because they want to avoid casualties. But we're building ships to hunt." The Admiral studied the sleek design of the new destroyer. It looked dangerous even sitting still in the construction bay. "Our awakened humans think differently than other species," Onari continued. "We don't mind taking risks if it means winning faster. Every human ship has the firepower to punch above its weight class. And the crews? That's the interesting part. Human crews work together in ways that confuse other species. Look at Commander Ryu Donghyun's battle reports. They pulled up the records from Ryu Donghyun's recent engagement with a Velnari squadron. His ship had been outnumbered 3-1, but he had won by doing something no alien commander would attempt, splitting his forces and attacking from multiple directions simultaneously. The Velnari admiral couldn't understand it. Onari said. He kept waiting for Ryu Donghyun to consolidate his forces and fight defensively. Instead, every human crew member acted like an independent commander, making their own tactical decisions. Coordinated chaos. Admiral Choi Yun-soo mused. Each part of the whole fighting its own battle, but all working toward the same goal. It was a human way of fighting that other species found incomprehensible. Alien militaries used strict hierarchies and detailed battle plans. Humans used what they called adaptive tactics, plans that changed constantly based on what was happening in the moment. Captain Lim Jae-sung had experienced this firsthand during the liberation of the mining station on Kepler 442. His assault team had been given a simple objective: capture the communication center. But when they arrived, the situation was completely different than expected. Instead of following their original plan, each team member had automatically shifted to a new strategy. They moved like water, flowing around obstacles and finding weaknesses the enemy didn't even know existed. The battle was over in minutes. "It's like we can read each other's minds," he told his superior officers afterward. "Not literally, but close. We all seem to understand what needs to happen without talking about it." The psychological reports were disturbing. Dr. Im So-young had been studying the awakened humans for months, documenting the changes in their behavior and thinking patterns. "They're becoming more aggressive," she reported to the Human Colonial Congress. "Not just in combat, but in everything. They take bigger risks, show less empathy for non-humans, and display an increasing obsession with winning." President Yang Soo-bin read the reports with growing concern. "Are we losing our humanity?" "That depends on how you define humanity," Dr. Im So-young replied. "If humanity means being peaceful and cooperative, then yes, we're losing it. But if humanity means being adaptable and determined, then we're becoming more human than ever." The changes weren't just mental. Captain Cho Yun-sol had noticed physical improvements in her crew. They were faster, stronger, and healed from injuries that would have disabled them before their awakening. Some could go days without sleep during combat operations. "It's like our bodies are becoming military machines," she told Admiral Choi Yun-soo. "Everything that isn't useful for fighting is being suppressed or eliminated." The most dramatic example was Commander Moon Dong-wook's unit on the front lines. They had been fighting continuously for 2 weeks against Velnari forces, living on minimal food and water. Any normal human troops would have collapsed from exhaustion. Instead, they were getting better at fighting each day. "We don't need as much rest as we used to," Moon Dong-wook reported. "And pain doesn't affect us the same way. Yesterday, Private Kang Min-ho fought for 3 hours with a broken arm. He didn't even seem to notice." The enemy was beginning to notice these changes too. Captured Velnari officers spoke of human troops who fought like demons, showing no fear of death and no mercy for their enemies. "They don't fight to survive," one prisoner told his interrogators. "They fight to destroy. Every human soldier thinks like a general. Every general fights like a soldier. They're all equally dangerous." Admiral Velthar himself had reached the same conclusion. Standing before the Coalition Emergency Council, he painted a picture of humanity that terrified the other species. "The humans are not becoming better soldiers," he declared. "They are becoming living weapons. Their entire species is transforming into something the galaxy has never seen before." The Hithran delegate, Queen Zexhai, clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. "Perhaps that is what the galaxy needs. The coalition has grown weak and corrupt. Maybe the humans will clean house for us, and then what?" "And then?" demanded the Cortani representative, his crystalline body flashing with angry colors. "What happens when they finish cleaning house? Who will clean up the humans?" It was a question that haunted even human leaders. Captain Lee Dae-ho had spent months studying the architect records, and what he found kept him awake at night. "The architects created 15 different warrior races over millions of years," he told Dr. Park Soo-jin. "Every single one of them eventually turned on their creators and destroyed themselves in endless wars. But those were different species," she argued. "Humans have something the others didn't. We have choice. We can decide what to become, we." Dae-ho wanted to believe that, but the reports from the front lines suggested otherwise. Each victory made human forces more aggressive. Each battle awakened more dormant abilities. The process seemed to feed on itself, growing stronger with each passing day. Colonel Han Ji-woo had seen the change in his own troops. The farmers and Miners who had defended New Busan were now hardened veterans who spoke casually about destroying entire enemy fleets. They still looked human, but something essential had changed. "We're winning," he told his officers during their latest briefing. "The Velnari are retreating on every front. Their allies are switching sides or remaining neutral. Within a year, we could control half the galaxy." "And then what?" asked Major Yoon Hee-jin. She had changed more than most, her gentle farmer's disposition replaced by cold, tactical thinking. "Then we control the other half," Han Ji-woo replied without hesitation. The room fell silent. A year ago, such words would have horrified them. Now they seemed reasonable, even obvious. Outside, the ancient crystals from the asteroid pulsed with steady light, as if approving of humanity's transformation. The architect legacy was working exactly as designed. The galaxy's new masters were awakening, and nothing would ever be the same. Admiral Hong Sang-woo stared at the tactical display showing the Velnari home system. 6 months ago, attacking the enemy's capital would have been suicide. Now it seemed not just possible, but inevitable. His human fleet had grown beyond all expectations. Ships from dozens of species had joined them, crewed by beings who had grown tired of Velnari rule. But it was the human commanders who made the difference. "Admiral, we're ready to begin the assault," reported Captain Kwan Minna from the lead destroyer. Her voice was calm, professional. A year ago she had been a cargo pilot. Now she commanded one of the most feared warships in the galaxy. "Colonel Shin Era, what's the status of the ground forces?" Hong Sang-woo asked. "Loaded and ready, sir. My troops are eager to finish this." That was the disturbing part. The humans weren't just fighting this war, they were enjoying it. Each victory made them hunger for the next battle. Hong Sang-woo had felt the same pull himself. The attack began at dawn, ship time. Human vessels struck the Velnari defense grid with tactics that seemed to come from nowhere. They moved in patterns that confused enemy computers, struck at weak points that shouldn't have been visible, and coordinated their attacks with frightening precision. Dr. Na Jun-young watched the battle from his research vessel, studying the human commanders as they worked. What he saw made him deeply uncomfortable. "They're not following normal tactical procedures," he told his assistant. "Look at Admiral Hong Sang-woo's decisions. He's countering enemy moves before the enemy makes them. How is that possible? I think the genetic changes are affecting their brains in ways we don't understand. They're developing something like tactical precognition. They can sense what the enemy will do next." It wasn't just Admiral Hong Sang-woo. Across the fleet, human commanders were making decisions that bordered on supernatural. Captain Cho Yun-sol destroyed 3 enemy cruisers by predicting exactly where they would be when her torpedoes arrived. Major Jung Hyun-soo led his assault troops through enemy defenses as if he had studied the plans for weeks. The Velnari defenders fought bravely, but they were facing something beyond their understanding. Human forces didn't just outfight them, they outthought them at every level. "Fall back to secondary positions," Admiral Velthar ordered his fleet. But the humans had already anticipated that move. They were waiting. Dr. Na Jun-young made a horrifying discovery while monitoring the battle. "The genetic changes aren't random," he announced over the fleet communication network. "They're following a pattern, a predetermined sequence encoded in human DNA." Admiral Hong Sang-woo paused his tactical planning. "What kind of pattern?" The architect records show a timeline. Humanity was designed to awaken in stages, first enhanced reflexes, then tactical awareness, then strategic thinking, and finally, Dr. Na Jun-young's voice trailed off. "Finally what?" demanded Hong Sang-woo. "Dominance imperative. An overwhelming drive to conquer and control. According to the timeline, we're entering the final stage now." The communication channel fell silent. Every human commander in the fleet understood what that meant. They were becoming exactly what the architects had designed them to be. Major Jung Hyun-soo led his reconnaissance team deeper into Velnari space, following clues from the ancient records. What they found on a dead world called Kethmore changed everything. "Admiral, you need to see this," he reported from the planet's surface. "We've found more architect ruins, but these are different." The ruins told the story of the architect's previous experiments, 15 warrior races, each one created to cleanse the galaxy of corruption and weakness. The records showed what happened to each one. They all followed the same pattern, Jong Hyun-soo reported. First, they defeated their enemies, then they turned on each other, and finally they destroyed themselves in endless wars. Captain Kwon Mina studied the alien writing on the ruined walls. But why? If they were winning, why did they destroy themselves? Because winning wasn't enough, Dr. Na Jun-young answered over the communication link. The genetic programming doesn't stop at victory. It demands constant conflict. Without enemies to fight, they fight each other. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just becoming a warrior race, they were becoming a race that needed war to survive. Scientist Lee Hwan-gi made the final discovery that sealed their fate. Deep in the Architect archives, he found the genetic trigger mechanism. It's irreversible, he announced to the assembled human leadership. Once the awakening begins, it can't be stopped. The changes will continue until every human becomes a perfect killer. How long do we have? Asked President Yang Subin. Based on current rates of change, maybe 6 months before the final stage completes. After that, we won't be able to control our aggressive impulses. Admiral Choi Yan-soo had grown old during the war, but her eyes were still sharp. So we have 6 months to decide what kind of killers we want to be. The debate that followed would determine the fate of the galaxy. Some human leaders argued for embracing their destiny. They had been created to be warriors, so they should be the best warriors possible. Others fought for a different path. Captain Lee Dae-ho spoke for many when he said, "We may have been designed for war, but we weren't designed to choose. That's something we developed on our own." The question became urgent as human forces closed in on the Velnari homeworld. Each victory brought them closer to total dominance, but also closer to losing their humanity forever. Colonel Han Ji-woo noticed the change in himself and his troops. They no longer cared about minimizing casualties or protecting civilian populations. Victory was the only thing that mattered. "We're becoming monsters," he told Major Yoon Hye-jin after their latest battle. "Maybe," she replied, "but we're winning monsters." That was the terrible choice facing humanity. They could complete their transformation and become the galaxy's ultimate predators, or they could try to resist their programming and risk being destroyed by species who no longer trusted them. Dr. Im So-young had been studying the psychological changes in awakened humans. Her latest report was the most disturbing yet. "The genetic modifications aren't just affecting combat abilities," she told the Human Colonial Congress. "They're suppressing empathy, increasing aggression, and creating addiction to victory. Each battle makes these changes worse." "So what you're saying," President Yang Subin said slowly, "is that the more we fight, the less human we become." "Exactly. But the less human we become, the better we are at fighting. It's a feedback loop that ends with us becoming exactly what the architects intended." As if to prove her point, reports came in from the final assault on the Velnari homeworld. Human forces had achieved total victory, but the cost was horrifying. They had shown no mercy to surrendering enemies and had destroyed cities that posed no military threat. Admiral Hong Sang-woo stood in the ruins of the Velnari capital, surrounded by his victorious troops. They were cheering, but he could see the change in their faces. They looked hungry for the next battle, disappointed that the war was ending. "What now, Admiral?" asked Captain Cho Yun-sol. She was one of the most changed, her former kindness, replaced by cold efficiency. Hong Sang-woo looked at the burning city around them. "Now we decide what we do with our victory." But deep in his enhanced warrior's mind, he already knew the answer. Victory wasn't an ending. It was just the beginning of a larger hunt. The architect programming was almost complete. Soon, humanity would face its final test, whether they could transcend their designed nature or become another failed experiment in the endless cycle of creation and destruction. The galaxy watched and waited, wondering whether its new masters would be saviors, or the beginning of the end. Fleet Admiral Park Jun-ho stood on the command deck of the massive human dreadnought Victory, watching the Velnari homeworld burn below. 6 months of siege had ended with total human victory. The reptilian empire that had ruled the galaxy for centuries was finished, but Park Jun-ho felt no satisfaction, only hunger for the next battle. "Admiral, the Velnari Supreme Commander is requesting surrender terms," reported Captain Cho Yun-sol. Her voice was flat, emotionless. The gentle woman who had once worried about casualties was gone, replaced by something that thought only of victory. "Terms?" Park Jun-ho almost laughed. "We don't negotiate with defeated enemies. That was the new human way. Total victory or nothing." The genetic programming had progressed exactly as the architect records predicted. Humanity had become the perfect weapon, but at a terrible cost. General Moon Dong-wook led the ground assault through the Velnari capital. His troops moved through the city like a plague, showing no mercy to civilians or soldiers. They weren't evil, they simply no longer understood concepts like mercy or restraint. "General, we've secured the government district," reported Colonel Shin A-ra. "What are your orders regarding prisoners?" Moon Dong-wook thought for a moment. A year ago he would have ordered proper treatment for captives. Now the question seemed pointless. "Process them efficiently," he said. "We have other worlds to conquer." "Doctor." Im So-young watched the proceedings from her medical station, documenting the final stage of human transformation. The changes were now complete. Enhanced aggression, suppressed empathy, addiction to conflict. Everything the architects had programmed was fully active. "We've won," she told her assistant, Dr. Song Bo-ram. "But I'm not sure what we've become." The answer came from an unexpected source. Captain Lee Dae-ho, still studying the architect records aboard his research vessel, made a discovery that changed everything. "Admiral Choi," he called over the communication network, "I found something in the final data core. The architects left a message for their creations." Admiral Choi Yeon-soo was the only senior human leader who seemed to retain some of her original personality. The genetic changes had affected her less than the others, perhaps because of her age. "What kind of message?" she asked. "A warning and a choice." Captain Lee Dae-ho transmitted the decoded message to the entire human fleet. The architect's words appeared on every screen, translated into simple human language. "To our final creation, you have become what we designed you to be. Perfect warriors, unstoppable conquerors. But we offer you what we offered no other race. A choice. You can continue on the path we set and rule the galaxy through strength alone. Or you can choose something we never anticipated. The power to change your own nature." The message continued. "We failed because we only programmed for war. But you developed something beyond our planning. The ability to choose peace not from weakness, but from strength. The question is, will you use it?" Admiral Velthar, the defeated Velnari commander, was brought before Park Jun-ho to formally surrender. The old reptilian's scales were gray with age and defeat, but his eyes still held intelligence. "Your people have become what we always feared," he said quietly. "The perfect predators. But I wonder, do you understand what you've given up to become this?" Park Jun-ho felt the genetic programming pushing him to simply kill the defeated enemy. But something else stirred in his mind, a memory of who he used to be. "What have we given up?" he asked. "The ability to be satisfied," Velthar replied. "Warriors like you can never stop fighting. When you've conquered the galaxy, you'll fight each other. When you've destroyed everything else, you'll destroy yourselves. It's the fate of every perfect weapon." The words hit Park Jun-ho like a physical blow. He looked around at his officers, seeing them clearly for the first time in months. They were magnificent warriors, but they were also addicts. Addicted to victory, to conflict, to the rush of battle. Engineer Kim Hyo-jin had been working on the problem from a different angle. While others studied genetics and psychology, she had been analyzing the mechanical systems of architect technology. "Admiral, Park," she called over the communication link. "I think I've found something important. The genetic triggers aren't permanent programming, they're more like software. They can be modified." "Modified how?" Admiral Choi Yeon-soo asked. "The same crystals that awakened our abilities can be used to change them. We could keep our enhanced capabilities but modify the aggressive programming." Dr. Na Junyoung confirmed the possibility. It would be dangerous. We'd be rewriting our own genetic code in real time. Some of us might not survive the process. And some of us might not survive if we don't try, Captain Lee Dae-ho replied. Look at what we've become. We're exactly what the architects wanted, and look what happened to them. The debate that followed was unlike anything in human history. They were essentially choosing what kind of species they wanted to be. Major Jong Hyun-soo spoke for the military faction. We've won because we embraced our nature. Why should we change now? Because winning isn't everything, replied Captain Kwon Min-ah. If we can't choose to be better than our programming, then we're just very sophisticated animals. President Yang Soo-bin called for a vote among all awakened humans. The choice was simple: remain as they were and rule through force, or risk everything to become something new. The results were closer than expected. 51% voted to attempt the modification. 49% wanted to remain as perfect warriors. Admiral Choi Yeon-soo made the decision that would define humanity's future. We try to change, not because we have to, but because we can. The process began immediately. Human scientists worked with architect technology to modify the genetic triggers. They kept the enhanced abilities but tried to restore emotional balance and empathy. Not everyone survived. Some humans couldn't handle the genetic changes and died during the procedure. Others refused the modification entirely and left to form their own warrior colonies in distant systems. Captain Cho Yun-sol was among those who chose the modification. As the process completed, she felt emotions returning that she hadn't experienced in months. Looking at the destruction around the Velnari homeworld, she began to cry. "What have we done?" she whispered. But Admiral Park Jun-ho, who had also undergone the modification, put a hand on her shoulder. "We did what we had to do to survive. Now we do what we choose to do to live." The transformation wasn't perfect. Modified humans retained their enhanced abilities but struggled with the memories of what they had done during their warrior phase. Some couldn't handle the guilt and took their own lives, but others found a new purpose. General Moon Dong-wook led efforts to rebuild the worlds they had destroyed. Captain Lee Dae-ho established research stations to study architect technology and prevent its misuse. Engineer Kim Hyo-jin designed new ships focused on exploration and rescue rather than warfare. "We can use our abilities to protect instead of conquer," she told her design teams. The galaxy watched humanity's transformation with wonder and fear. Some species welcomed the change while others remained suspicious. The Velnari, surprisingly, became humanity's strongest allies in the new order. "You proved something we thought impossible," Admiral Velthar told Admiral Choi Yeon-soo during the peace negotiations. "You showed that a species can choose to be better than their nature, but the choice came with a price." Humanity now existed in a state of constant tension between their enhanced abilities and their chosen restraint. They were capable of terrible violence but committed to preventing it. Captain Lee Dae-ho, now director of the Architect Research Institute, put it best in his final report. "We weren't born for war. We were created for it. But we chose something the architects never imagined. We chose to create ourselves. The human colonies established a new form of government based on continuous choice rather than permanent programming. Every generation would have the opportunity to modify their genetic heritage, to become what they chose rather than what they were designed to be. Some chose to enhance their peaceful nature, becoming natural diplomats and healers. Others maintained the warrior modifications but used them to protect rather than conquer. A few chose to explore entirely new possibilities, pushing the boundaries of what humanity could become. The galaxy entered a new age, not ruled by the strongest, but guided by those wise enough to choose their own strength. Humanity had broken the cycle that destroyed the architects and their previous creations. They had learned the most important lesson of all. True power isn't the ability to destroy your enemies, but the wisdom to choose not to. The ancient crystals. Still pulsed with light in human research facilities, but now they served a different purpose. Instead of awakening warriors, they helped each new generation of humans discover what they wanted to become. The choice, as always, was theirs to make.